Hello, my fellow wealth hackers. This is Erwin Cito bringing you another episode of the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. And how is everyone doing? Back at home, we finally replaced the batteries in our weight scale. Anyways, I'm 15 pounds heavier than I was last time I checked when the batteries did work. I'm just under 200 pounds now, and this is the heaviest I've ever been, which is okay. I am in week 4 of an 8-week muscle building challenge, and I've kept up with the workouts. I actually kind of hurt something in my neck and my back, so I'm going to get that looked at. Thankfully, I'm a little bit ahead in the workouts, so I only need to do one more workout this week. It's only Thursday night as I'm recording this, so I still have a few more days left to recover and get that last workout in. I haven't been doing so good on the recovery or the stretching or the sleep stuffs, but again, I kept up on the workouts. I haven't even kept up with the 2,500 calorie per day I'm supposed to eat. So this has really a really interesting journey for myself. But I believe that life is all about experiences, and I'm enjoying this process. I've never done anything like this before. For those who don't know, we sold our house, and our new house that we move into in March has a pool. So the goal is to be pool body ready by the summer. I think it's always good to have goals and objectives to, make sense of the madness. On a fun note, we just had our best month of stock hacking yet, so we are reinvesting the profits into getting a Peloton bike. Quick story about, I'm the first to admit when I'm wrong. I gladly admit when I'm wrong when new information is available. For example, early on when the virus is hitting and it looked to be a great recession, a great depression that we're running into, my thought was Peloton bikes. Usually in a recession, people cut off all, excessive expenditures. A Peloton bike comes with at least a $50 monthly subscription. The bike itself is like $3,000. I thought that company's going to be in trouble. No different than like all the gyms that are out there, restaurants. All the extra spending usually gets cut in a recession. But I was so wrong. I just read an email from the founder of the company saying that the demand is so bad, even after they've like 6 times or 12 times their output, their manufacturing output, they're still struggling to keep up with demand. For example, I ordered my bike on the weekend, and early February, and I'm not supposed to receive the bike until mid-April. So that's like 8 weeks. That's not too bad. Bit more than 8 weeks. 10 weeks. Bit wild. Anyways, so the neat thing about the bike is I'm a bit of a nervous Nelly. I don't like riding on the road. I'm afraid of cars hitting me and stuff. But for those who don't know, a Peloton bike it's an indoor bike. It's supposed to be a pretty nice bike. It has a built-in tablet screen. I believe it's 20 inches. That's touchscreen, and they stream live classes and on-demand classes as well. My output would be tracked and shared and displayed for other people to laugh at me. And if you're a fellow wealth hacker out there with the Peloton, please hit me up. It would be cool to ride together. I don't know if we can like chat and stuff while we're riding bike and suffering, but it would be cool and talk real estate, stocks and stuff. It'd be cool. So speaking of stock hacking, I forget to share Stock Hacker. Oh, I haven't shared this before on the podcast. So the Stock Hacker Academy is proud to announce that 20% of our trading profits will be donated to the registered charity of the Hamilton Bash Brigade. So, for example, profits that are made by Stock Hacker Academy, they go into a corporate trading account for me to trade personally, and then 20% of my profits will go towards charity. So how this, for example, so January was a great month for the corporate account. So the donation from the corporate account alone will be $6,400 for the month of January. As we grow Stock Hacker Academy, as we help more and more hardworking everyday Canadians to create 6-figure side hustles, we will donate and support the most disadvantaged children in Hamilton. That's why we're here. So just last week, the Hamilton Bash Brigade, the charity that I co-founded and preside over, last week we outfitted 176 boys and girls each receiving a winter coat, a hoodie, winter boots, hats, and mitts. We sourced all the products from a wholesaler, so we saved around 60 cents on the dollar, which is kind of like how I like to operate. I like my dollar to go further, and that includes charity as well. So for all you out there, I trust your investments are going well. In my day job as a real estate professional, I get to connect with real estate investors from all over Canada and a couple of folks in the US too. It's fascinating I'm a real estate geek, so I really enjoy talking about real estate and learning about real estate. It's fascinating how different all the markets across Canada are behaving. I was looking at an interactive map on wowa.ca. I was Googling. I never used this website before. It's pretty cool. WOWA.ca. I've posted the link in the show notes on real estate price changes by province. So Nova Scotia, Ontario, Quebec, and BC lead the country by far and away. They lead the country for price appreciation. I did not know Nova Scotia was doing so well. Saskatchewan and Alberta had the slowest price growth, both in the single digits. Alberta and Saskatchewan being very, very low. I get a little. Maybe I'm getting a little desensitized to even just minor. They're still positive, so it's not terrible. But it's not like the 7 to 20% that we're used to in Ontario. So that gives me an idea. I need to reach out to friends in Nova Scotia and Quebec to find out what's going on in those markets. I can't recall the last time we actually had a guest from out that way. So just take a step back. Some like to overcomplicate real estate investing. When put simply, real estate is like any business out there. It all starts with supply and demand. The supply of land in desirable areas is limited. That is why my own investing is always focused on houses on land and not condos in the sky. Demand comes from jobs and immigration, where there is job growth and where do immigrants want to live. The greater Vancouver area makes a ton of sense since the weather and lifestyle are awesome. They are accepting folks from different cultures, much like Ontario is as well, which is another top destination for immigration and job seekers. When demand outstrips supply, that's when you find price appreciation, and like those provinces that I named earlier. For all of you killing it out there with real estate appreciation, congratulations. You paid attention to economic fundamentals and took action. For some investors, the requirements lead with cash flow. So I'm hearing how everyday investors are going to Windsor, North Bay, Edmonton, Moncton, New Brunswick, or apartment building investors, which leads us to this week's guest. And this gentleman actually invests all across Canada. So I'm calling him a nationwide apartment building investor. His name is Michael Ponte. I first met Michael at a real estate conference many years ago. I think close to 10 years ago. It's pretty wild. Where he was collecting his award as Apartment Building Investor of the Year. I think Michael was only a couple of years into it too, and he was on fire, and so he's been collecting even more buildings since. Michael invests all across Canada, and more recently in the maritime provinces. And he's on the show. He actually shares his unique strategy. I didn't know this before on the specific demographic that he targets, and based on the demographic he targets, that kind of identifies where he's going to be buying in terms of location. And honestly, I want a strategy I can recall any past guest talking about in the multifamily space. Michael also shares some how he's able to invest in real estate on the other side of the country, because he lives in BC, but he invests as far away as Moncton, New Brunswick. So without further ado, I give you Michael Ponte. Hi, Michael. What's keeping you busy these days?
How's it going, buddy? Long time no see. Thanks for having me, man.
It's been a while. And that's why I can't believe this is the first time you're on the show.
Got to get the invite, I guess, right?
No, I don't know what the delay was. Honestly, don't know what the delay was, because I first met you in person. I think it was 2015 or 2016. You were collecting an award. I'm trying to remember which organization. Is either at the Investor Forum or at RAIN. You were collecting an award for multifamily investor.
Yeah, it was the Investor Forum, Canadian Real Estate Wealth Magazine. Yeah.
All right. Wait. So you okay? So that was I should know better. That was a national award that you won.
That was, yeah.
Badass. Okay, because like it didn't connect for me for a moment because I thought that was a provincial award, but you're not from Ontario. Oh, and
No.
for the listeners, hey, we got someone from outside of Ontario.
Hey guys.
There's places outside to invest outside of Ontario. Who knew?
Believe it or not. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Maybe that's why it took you so long to get on the show. So, like, what is keeping you busy these days? And that was almost 5 years ago now. I've been following along from a distance. You've been doing a lot more, even when you're the award-winning multifamily investor of the year for Canada in 2016ish. You've done a lot more. Could you give us an idea of what you're at now in terms of like what is the I don't know, how many properties did you buy last year? What's your target property these days?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your strategy.
Awesome. Yeah. Great questions. And thanks for having me on, Erwin. It's great to see you yet again. And like I said, communicate with other people that I've known in the industry for a long time. For those, yes, I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia here. For myself, I've been investing for roughly around 20 years. And so I've been doing this a very, very long time. And for myself, got started just like a lot of people, just buying a few pieces of real estate and started to kind of expand from there. I started to...
Michael, can you explain bought a few, like what did you buy? Condos, townhouses, 30 unit buildings?
Yeah, no, I actually started with the simplistic property, which is a basic townhouse, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, finished basement. Because when I was first starting many, many years ago, and Erwin and I were kind of talking just before we got on here, is, there's a lot of information right now. There's tons of information that's out there, but back in the day, there wasn't a lot. So I actually didn't really know what the heck I was doing when I first got started. So I started small. And my thought process was start small. So if I'm making mistakes, those mistakes will be small as well. And as I started to grow and scale and learn, really by example, is when a lot of my knowledge started to kind of come in and started to diversify and started to kind of go into more single family homes with suites downstairs, suited duplexes, fourplexes. And then I started to kind of move into the more of the multifamily side, which is the area we focus in right now. So our focus is really kind of in apartment buildings. Our focus and our target is kind of in that sweet spot of roughly around 12, 13 unit apartment buildings to up to maybe around 25 to 30 units. That is kind of our sweet zone. And the reason why we do that is we're not buying something a little bit smaller where people that are in multifamily that are just getting started are acquiring and maybe spending too much money on those types of transactions because it's a little bit more affordable. And then at the same time, we're not necessarily competing with some of the REITs and some of the bigger institutions that are out there when it comes to multifamily. So that's our sweet zone. And for myself, we're just steady Eddie investors where there's not a lot of pizzazz and excitement. And, we have a real strict model in how we approach our acquisitions. As a kind of average rule of thumb, our focus is minimum between 1 to 3 or 4 properties per year. But the key point that we look at is I'm happy to not buy anything, to be honest, if the numbers don't make sense. It's not about volume for me. It's about, I want to buy a project today. And our strategy is we want to see equity from the very beginning. So we are looking for some of those motivated sellers. We're looking for a little bit of distress. And this way we're in a position where there's a little bit of a buffer to protect ourselves. And here's the perfect example. In a situation when we're dealing with the pandemic, if the market starts to drop for whatever particular reason, we've got a little bit of cushion to protect ourselves. And one of the other more important pieces that we look at when we acquire is cash flow. And we do need to see cash flow out of the property. Multifamily, you have to treat like a business. You're buying a business like a coffee shop or any type of commercial business. And, for those that are just looking or considering this, would you, here's a question back to any of our guests that are listening to this today is like, would you buy a business that loses money every single month? And of course, the answer is going to be no. And the same thing would actually apply when it comes to multifamily as well. So for us, we're looking at, in a situation based on current reality, the property is performing well today, But then at the same time, we're looking for that upside as well. Where are those opportunities to raise the rents, the net operating income, and increase the valuation of that business?
Mhm.
So we have a very strict criteria of the properties we're looking for, and we'll sit on the sidelines until we find the right one for us. So for me,
Mhm.
it's not about, hey, you know what, I need to buy 100 units or 200 units this particular year. That's great. For me, I'm not really interested in this. I want to put my time and attention on what's actually going to make me money every single month. So,
Mhm.
um, so for me, we just finished up a property. We bought a 12-unit apartment building in Edmonton just recently. I've got a property going under contract, hopefully within the next half an hour, 45 minutes. Another 12-unit apartment building actually in New Brunswick that we're just locking up as well. And both of them are absolutely fantastic properties that have performed. So yeah, like I said, we'll do those types of projects all day long, and with the same model that we've kind of stayed consistent with for the last several years of investing in real estate. So
Awesome. I was actually
yeah,
going to ask before you mentioned Edmonton, New Brunswick. Like you live in Vancouver, you're finding
I
cash
do.
flow and built-in equity on in Vancouver.
No.
No.
No. And here's the funny thing is, so I can appreciate what your guests are listening to in Ontario. So guys in Vancouver, we're dealing with the same situation you guys are, just so you know. And when it comes to cash flow, it's really, really challenging. And even for myself, I don't own a lot of property in this lower mainland where I live because they don't, for our strategy, it doesn't work. Obviously the equity gain has been significant, and sometimes you kick yourself. You're like, I wish I jumped into it and been able to ride that appreciation. But it's one of those things that you just have no control of. You don't necessarily know if that's going to happen. And for us, we've got properties in Alberta, and so we've ridden a real a positive wave and also the opposite side. But that's really when when your strategies are working. My biggest concern is in markets that have been constant appreciation is they're not used to a true downturn in the economy.
Mhm.
And so for those, I'm always very cognizant and very cautious when I see prices continuing to go up, and it's been going up for years and years and years. My concern is,
Yeah.
when will that eventually happen, and if it's going to happen. But
Mhm.
it's one of those things we always plan for when any acquisition that we look for. But as long as you've got sustained cash flow and profitability every single month, you can outride any of those things, right? So
Mhm. Oh, I was reading an article. Biden's expected to announce 1.2 trillion of stimulus in the next coming
wow.
days, right? I know. So yeah, I asked the same thing. Like I asked the questions, when's this going to stop,
Yeah.
right? And then you read, oh, there's another 1.2 trillion dollars are coming, eh?
Here we go.
And then
Yeah.
I was reading an article yesterday from in the Globe and Mail about the Stephen Pelosi saying, what's saving us is interest rates are low, so that we can actually afford our debt service.
Yep.
So what's he saying? Like, just read between the lines. Interest rates can't go up.
Well, that's the point, right? So
That's
for
what
us,
he's saying.
yeah, absolutely. As you as an investor as well, you're looking at that as like, this is a huge opportunity in regards to regaining some of your cash flow. But there's obviously, you look at all the stimulus and everything that's going on. That's one thing, and you have kids just like I do. Um, I'm very concerned for them. Like at some point in time, the piper needs to get paid, and so where is that going to come from? And that's always my biggest issue that
I
I'm
don't know
very
either.
concerned with.
Yeah, I'm just
Right?
as concerned as you are. Yeah, we're
We're going
that's not
off
what we're talking
tangent.
about
Anyways.
today. Hey, Trudeau said the words himself, Great Reset, right? He named the conspiracy theory by name, so don't blame us for going down this rabbit hole.
For sure, exactly.
So where is most of your focus then in terms of geography? You mentioned Edmonton, you mentioned New Brunswick. I've been hearing a lot about New Brunswick lately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned Halifax before we were recording. Do
Yep.
you have a focus? Or is it
I do. Well, like for me,
or is it more the property type and the numbers you need to hit before you even look at it? Like, which way does it go first?
Well, it was
Or
interesting
intersection between geography and certain numbers.
it's kind of a combination of both, to be honest with you. And so for us, we're trying to pay attention to what's happening in the economy and some different things. And some parts of it, we were very fortunate and just took a chance, right? So while the economy wasn't doing so well in Alberta, Edmonton back in 2016, it's not to say, and this is the benefit about multifamily, is you're not so dependent on the market. If market's appreciating or not, you're really focused on the business, the growth of the business and the success of it. So even you're acquiring properties, you're paying really close attention to net operating income and looking at ways to increase valuation. So that can be done in a up market, a down market, as long as there's sustainability and the vacancy rates are reasonable, then you can kind of maintain the business side. And then if people are becoming tired landlords or whatever the situation is, these are become opportunities where you can acquire properties for a good price. So when we were looking at Alberta, and we've been investing there for quite a while, we just started kind of exploring some of the different markets out there, completely different. We looked, it's funny. It was back, I think it was in 2015. Again, here's a message of kicking yourself. I was actually out in Hamilton, and we were looking at deals, and the numbers were just like, for cash flow, was just barely kind of getting through there. And I had a couple of properties. I actually put one under contract, and I actually walked away from it, from a 15 unit one. And so here, the market just absolutely exploded, shortly after that. And we never did jump into that particular market. And so the reason why we didn't do it at that point in time is, again, we treat it as a business. We want to make sure that the income stream was always there. And that's always been our claim to fame, is that we want to make sure that the business is able to support itself at any point in time. So as we started looking at different markets, we did come to the realization out in Halifax, where we started looking at some of the properties. We saw kind of the university communities that were out there, and very big university towns. So we started kind of exploring this, and we saw how solid it was in regards to how low vacancies were. But the other part was just affordability. And the second part was the cap rates were just extremely high back then. And we were talking like 2013, somewhere in that vicinity. And so we thought, you know what, we started to crunch the numbers and started to look at it. And we looked at it. The prices really didn't change at that time. They were just like, it was pretty flat, but where it was able to produce was the income side. It was quite significant, more than what we were able to see in any other market. So we thought we'd test the waters out and just kind of get into a property out there just to see. And it was a 15-unit apartment building, all 2 bedrooms. It was a great property. And so we thought, let's test it out. And the cash flow that was coming in was absolutely significant, still is today. And it was more than offsetting what we would have maybe occurred on the equity side. So what we saw was cash flow that was offsetting any appreciation. So we didn't budget for any appreciation. So when I spoke with partners, I told them, I go, listen, the price that we're buying it for, and I'm trying to remember the number, I think it was just under $600,000 for a 15-unit apartment building. So when you hear that, it's just like, holy crap, but those don't exist anymore. But the reality is, you're able to acquire something like that, and the cash flow is just absolutely massive. So our presentation to our partners was, we're buying it for this, we're selling it for almost exactly the same price, but where we saw the opportunities, you're getting the mortgage pay down, and here's what we're seeing on the cash flow. Those are both things that we had a lot of clarity to, and we felt confident with. Mm-hmm. So for our investors that were interested in that type of income stream, that made sense for them. So we tested it out. Very, very fortunate that the economy really did take off out there, but we really put our attention and focus on who our client was, which would be our tenants. And those were students. And, they had major university towns. So we knew it was going to be very solid there, because, you're always going to have students. They're very, very well reputable. And so that's been our kind of strategy moving forward, is really determining and understanding who our client base before we start looking at some of the different markets. And so as we started exploring a little bit of the East Coast, we saw some other different opportunities, and New Brunswick's actually a new market for us too. And it's like we've done in Halifax, is just tipping our toes in the water to test it. But they've actually had some decent appreciation. They have very good cash flow in those particular markets. And, even for some of the projects that we'd be looking at, we're on the fence on this particular one that we're going to be acquiring. That one may be more of a kind of a BRRRR multifamily strategy, where, we're going to be doing some short-term financing for a year. And then at that point in time, maybe make some decisions if we want to flip it, make a couple, $150,000, $200,000 out of that thing, or do we keep it as a nice long-term income strategy on that one too? So for me, I'm always looking at different markets. And once we've established ourselves there, we have our team in place, and we just continue to look at opportunities. So right now we're kind of looking at, 3-4 different markets. Calgary, Edmonton is kind of our base. We've got property in Fort St. John in BC, which is also doing well. And then we've got Halifax, and also out in New Brunswick out there as well, in Moncton. And so those are kind of the areas that we're putting some attention to. And for me, I'm always just looking at new different markets, understanding it more. I'm also trying to be cautious in regards to not overextending ourselves in regards to locations too. So even as we have acquired some different properties, we've had a lot of our single family properties for quite some time, since like 2001, 2002. A lot of them are actually starting to kind of get paid off at this point. So we're getting close to that. So, for us, our strategy and finding our niches being in multifamily, we're maybe starting to consider looking at exiting some of the residential stuff and cashing in on some of those particular transactions there, and moving that capital to our different asset class that we're considering as well. So, yeah.
I'm impressed you still hold your singles when you have most people, a lot of multifamilies, especially the size that you're doing. Most people don't hold their singles after they have that multifamily bug.
Yeah. There's no question. Like it's funny because, some of the transactions that we did early in our days, and you'll appreciate this. So again, 2001, 2002, we're buying these townhomes, believe it or not. My very first deal, the very first one that I owned was a townhouse, big, ugly brown piece of junk. And I shouldn't say it's a piece of junk, but it's this ugly brown house. And we bought this for like $82,000, right? Back then. This thing owes me nothing. Like, it's completely clear. And all it's doing is putting like almost $1,000 a month in my pocket. So it's just like, do I want to kill the goose or not? And so that's, part of it is, why am I in this game to begin with? And initially for me, it was about spending more time with my family. And that's why I got into real estate to begin with, and have a decent income stream, not to be the next Mr. super rich real estate guy by any means. It was about establishing myself where I was able to generate an income stream to be spending more time with my family, be at home, doing the things that I really want to do. And so that's kind of been the big focus for me. So it's still fine if I'm seeing those opportunities that are still producing that great cash flow. It's hard to kind of give that up. Yes, to your point. But even now, as we've looked at this and we've got these assets that have been pretty much paid off for the most part, you start to consider is this the time to start parking your money somewhere else to kind of maybe do something a little bit differently with this. But again, when the goose is actually laying the egg constantly every single month, sometimes you're just like, maybe not. So,
is the goose in Vancouver? Is the townhouse?
No.
Oh, where is it?
No. So that's actually in Edmonton as well. So my very first property was actually in Edmonton. My very first one.
But wait, did you live there at the time, or
first investment? First investment property. Yeah, my first property was actually in Vancouver. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Do you have property in Vancouver?
Other than my personal residence? No.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that this was about family. So I have a friend of mine who invests in like 5 different cities. I make fun of them all the time. Yeah, but they're all. You could drive them all in 4 hours. Right. You can't drive your properties in 4 hours.
Not anywhere close. No, not at all.
How did you build that out then, that you're still able to spend time with family, but you're on the left coast. You have property on the right coast.
Totally. Yeah.
How did you build that out?
So just like anything. Go ahead.
Pardon my ignorance. What's the flight from Vancouver to Edmonton? How long is that?
Oh, it's not. It's about an hour and a half, not even. So
okay. Pardon my ignorance, but still, you have to get on a plane.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So how did you build out this system that you could cover this much geography?
That's great question. And for a lot of people, this is a big thing that holds people back. So for us, and especially Vancouver, and I'm assuming Ontario, the same thing too.
For sure, yeah.
For a lot of people, they want to see their property. They want to be able to drive to it. They want to be able to see what's going on, and they just can't fathom going somewhere else. And just like anything is, when you are building a business in a different market, you do have to spend some time out there initially to kind of set up your team, build your team, vet your team. And then you've got to have a good, credible, trustworthy team in every single market that we have. And we do. We have a very good, solid team, be it property managers, our realtors, our contractors, lawyers. We have everybody's kind of set up in that particular area. And so for me, I try to get out to these properties, usually pre-COVID, usually every kind of 4 months. So I'll kind of do the circuit, really, just to kind of go out and just do my visual inspections. But the best part, and the one thing that COVID has kind of done for me, and I think for a lot of people here, is when you're in a situation, when you're in a lockdown, your business does not hopefully stop. And so the reality is you need to adapt. And if there's one thing that has come to fruition more than anything is just the power of our technology, be it our cell phones, and how we are able to manage our business so effectively right here. It's amazing. So whenever I'm still doing our inspections with our properties, but now instead of being there physically, I've literally kind of being walked through virtually and going through each and every single suite and just reviewing it, having our property manager on our earbuds as we're talking and saying, go to this corner, go to this. And so just talking out loud about every single unit that we've done. So we've really utilized technology in our business significantly. Like it's changed our systems upside down in regards to the way we wanted to approach it. And so it has become such an eye-opening experience in regards to what we're able to do that really, the belief is the world is your oyster. There's so much more than just right in your backyard. And just because it's not producing there, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't produce it in some other different markets. And the way technology is available to us today, like never, ever before, it's much easier. The biggest piece that you have to overcome is finding those relationships, those individuals that are going to be on the street there that you can trust and have credibility. And my comment to anybody is, it's referrals, just like anything else. You need to be working your referrals, talk to people, network like crazy, find those individuals. And the second part to this, and I learned this a long, long time ago, is you really can't have enough people on your investment team at all. And so for us, any market that we're in, we've got like 2 property managers, we've got several realtors that work with us. And so always having a backup just in case something does go awry. And I'm sure you've seen this too, and people that are no shot to our realtors or property managers, but our property managers, I God bless you guys. Like, honestly, that is one of the hardest jobs, toughest roles out there. And I give you guys full credit, but there are times when these guys get burnt out, or they're just like, you know what, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And they're literally walking away from their business. Well, that's a problem for you if you're using them. So it's always important to have that backup support just in case you need it. So
That's absolutely true. So you mentioned New Brunswick was your newest market. So how did you approach a new market where you had no boots on ground? Because I'm assuming you
yeah,
had no boots on ground at some point.
we didn't. So, the reality is just like this, we're doing right even now, is it's a screening process. I interview them just like anybody else. And so I get a chance to meet them and see them. And the best part about this kind of virtual world is I treat any of my my team members as like employees, and that's the way I look at it. And when I'm going through the interview process, it's kind of the same way too. It's, if you're bringing somebody on, you want to make sure that you have a very similar mindset, work ethic, compatibility, all of those things. And so when you're going through the interview process, that you have confidence in the person that you're working with. And so for me, it's screening them just like I would be doing, having a discussion like this with you, and making sure that it's the right potential fit for us. And don't get me wrong, it's not to say that you're going to hit a home run with that particular person, because no matter what, if it's an employee or somebody that you're planning on working with, you don't necessarily know what you have until they actually start to begin to work with you. But this is why, for us, we do a lot of screening, even just in a virtual world like this. And we kind of really test it out. Even our agreements that we have with our property managers to begin with, it's a 3-month trial basis just to kind of see how we go and see where it goes. If everything proceeds accordingly, then we'll continue an extension for a 1-year term. So for us, it's a screening process, no different than I would be even if I was there. It's just done very much virtually. And the big piece that I work with is, I've been in the industry for a long time. And so I know quite a few people around, and just shooting out there and say, hey, I'm looking for a property manager in Moncton, New Brunswick. And so because of the relationships I have, like yourself, Erwin, if you said, hey, Mike, I've got a great guy that's here, perfect. I'll take that information. And then at that point in time, I will do an interview with that person to see if it's a right fit or not. So like I said, sometimes right now, the way the technology works, I think we have to kind of change the way our mindset is. You have the ability to do it. It can be done virtually. And now you get a chance to see the person through a Zoom meeting like this, or FaceTime, whatever the situation would be, and really have a great discussion, great conversation. The big one for me, and I'm sure you as well, body language tells you a huge story. And so for me, when I see that, it tells me kind of a lot of what I need to see. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I do eventually get out to those particular markets, then
Mm-hmm.
obviously we'll be having those discussions and meetings
Mm-hmm.
further. But usually before I actually take possession of the property, or, as we go through our due diligence process, I would have my tentative team already in place, but I would be there first and be 100% sure, just to be confident. So I
Mm-hmm.
always go out to see the property before we do the acquisition, no matter what. And at that point in time, I'll be setting up my appointments with all of my team members before kind of signing on the dotted line with anybody. So yeah.
Right. So then how do you source property? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great question for all investors because, some people door knock, some people do flyers, some people do Google AdWords, Facebook ads. A lot of people use realtors. What's your strategy for sourcing property? Because especially like what you're looking for is not easy, right?
Not at all. Nope. So for us, realtors are a big piece for us, and so we want to leverage the individual's relationships that they have built with these owners. And this is maybe a little bit different when it comes to the multifamily side. Is there's a lot of realtors that are out there, and this, Irwin, but there may not be as many true, and I'm in quotations, commercial realtors that are specifically focused on multifamilies. And if they're really doing their job, they are literally knocking on doors. They have built relationships with a lot of these particular owners. And that's the beautiful thing about multifamily, is when you are in the position of acquiring a property, or there's a property for sale, that same owner most likely owns multiple multifamily deals. It happens all the time. So when you've got a realtor that has constantly reaching out to this owner, building those relationships, they may not be ready to sell at that point in time, but at some point they will. Their job is to make sure that they're getting the phone call first before anybody else. And so it's all of these kind of inside private deals, non-listed deals, that where all the really good opportunities come. And when you've got guys that are on the ground actually going out and making those contacts and building those relationships, my job is to make sure that the relationships we have with our realtors, that they're thinking of me first more than anybody else. And that's where I have to spend my time making sure that our relationship is solid. And I
Mm-hmm.
back it up with, if it's a real good opportunity and it fits our model, that we're able to do it quick, fast, get it done. And they know that they can be confident that this deal is going to get approached. So
Mm-hmm.
like even this, a property that we're just about to acquire, this one's actually a private listed apartment building that's actually getting wholesaled to me. So somebody actually came in and said, Mike, we can't close on this thing. And but at the same time, I want to be able to wholesale it to somebody. I know you're in this business. Would you be interested in taking a look at it? I'm like, absolutely. And so I do get wholesalers kind of sending me deals as well. Um, I hate to say this, but 90 to 95% of the time, they're not great. But you just never know when those opportunities do come. And again, relationships is really, really key to getting a lot of networking out. More importantly, is just making sure everybody understands the type of properties you're looking for. So then when those conversations are being had, you just never know. They might be at a barbecue and they're just like, yeah, I'm thinking of selling my apartment building. Great. What type of property? Hey, that sounds exactly like the one that Mike was looking for. I might be able to connect you to, and you guys may be able to make some type of an arrangement there.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we put a lot of attention with our realtors, really, really work with them. The one thing that maybe a lot of realtors don't like to hear is I do work with a lot of realtors, and my commitment to them is this: bring me the deal and I will sign the commitment to you once the deal is there. So you send me a deal first, I'll say, great, we're going to proceed with this. You have got my exclusivity for that particular deal. So I've got several realtors that are working out there for me. And one realtor may have a great relationship with one owner, another realtor, another owner. And so by pooling those types of relationships, that's how we kind of try to get some of our inventory. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just to share, in our community, we have what's called the Hamilton District Apartment Association. So it's where all the landlords, all the
landlords,
that's the regular regular networking meeting, and a lot of them are, they have the silver hair, right?
Yep.
There's a certain age demographic, because right, you know what I'm talking.
Yep.
Those are all the people you're buying from, but they're there for dinner, they're networking. They go to it's called the HDAA for short, and they go to the annual golf tournament. and the realtors or and there's the apartment building specialists, they're always there too.
Absolutely.
Right? Always wining and dining them, taking them golfing. They have those close relationships.
Yep.
And that's what I'm just saying this because for a lot of listeners, because I've been on the other end of it as a realtor, like, hey, Erwin, I hear you're a real estate agent. I'm interested in buying a 12 unit. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You ever bought one before? Like, no. Okay. What kind of tenants would you like? Doctors and lawyers, please. And make it a 10 cap as well. Okay. So, and this is what I'm trying to get across is, so, you're laughing because you get it, right? Because if it's full of doctors and lawyers and it's 10 cap, it's going to be mine.
I was going to say, just send me that deal, Erwin. I'll be happy to take it off your hands anytime.
And you pay me lots of money for it, right?
Happy to do it. Right? Happy to do it. Yeah, exactly.
So how do beginners approach, especially if it's a beginner, how do they build that relationship with the realtor? Because first off, I don't think many appreciate what that relationship is that the realtors have with the sellers, with the potential sellers. So. Now, how do they get attention from the realtor who has those relationships, or get attention from the wholesaler who has those deals?
Yeah.
Because if you're a beginner, you don't know them, you're falling to the bottom of the list.
There's no question. And I think the key piece I learned a long time ago is persistence. And that's the key is really stay consistent, stay persistent. There's part of it in regards to schmoozing them a little bit, like taking them out for lunch. But I think the most important part is that, there's integrity there. There is true, what's the right word for me? True initiative that you are wanting to do this and you have the ability to do this, because you can appreciate this too, Erwin. True to your word, because there's nothing worse for a realtor is wasting people's time. Like if if Erwin said, hey, I've got this property, it's a 12 or 15 unit apartment building, all filled with doctors, 10% cap rate. This is exactly what you're looking for. And then you're starting to go through the process. You put an offer, it's been accepted. And then you come back and say, oh, I can't do that. Your credibility just goes out the window. And so your job is to build credibility and confidence and make your realtor also have confidence in you that you're committed and you're really serious about this. And it takes time, just like anything. You have to build those relationships, and it's not going to be easy. But if you've got somebody that's there to help, if you've got somebody that is a player in the game and really has that initiative, then definitely you want to make sure you continue to expand and grow your relationships. Mm-hmm. Another strategy that I've used a lot, actually, and I still love it, is I really actually like very hungry realtors, to be honest with you, guys that are just getting started, but they are, you just see that sense in their eye. They got that twinkle in their eye where they are just aggressive and they're going to go places. And for me, I have a lot of inspiration from those individuals that are really wanting to drive. And for me, it's a great opportunity to kind of share and teach these guys what some of the things that I'm looking for. And I know they're going to work really, really hard for me. Now, at the end of the day, they may not be able to provide me with the deal, but I'm going to give them every opportunity to go out and start to source and try their best and bring those deals. And if it makes sense, I'm happy to do it. And so for those of you that are just getting started or brand spanking new, the relationships is key. But the one other message that I highlight is really expand your wings as far as you can. Make sure you're talking to lots of different individuals, your realtors. Another great source that you can talk to are property managers. Believe it or not, they are fantastic sources because they may be already managing the property and they're getting the inside scoop and saying, I'm thinking of selling the property. And that will be usually one of the first discussions that that owner is wanting to sell, and they're telling their property manager that. And how great would that be if you have a very good relationship with that property manager and they say, you know what, I might have somebody that might be interested in taking this off your hands. Because if the property manager really likes the building and doesn't want to let it go, he still wants to keep that under his portfolio. So the reality is if he can recommend somebody to take it over from the other owner, and still keep it, they'll be happy to do that. And for me, like if I have an opportunity with a property manager, I always pay him some type of a finder's fee or something of that nature to offset that, because some of those really great inside deals are they're hard to find. But that's where you really have to start to network like crazy and be part of these associations. And as Erwin referenced, these types of associations for landlords, they're all over the country. They're everywhere. And so every city has it. And connect, get out there and start talking to these people, build those relationships. And like I said earlier, that one owner, that one multifamily owner, more often than not owns multiple properties, and they may not want to get rid of their whole portfolio, but they may just want to all of a sudden get rid of one. And if you're very fortunate to actually deal with somebody in that scenario and you buy a property from him, the next time they may want to buy another property, guess where they're going to come to first? Because if you're in the position where you're in acquisition mode and they're maybe exiting, there could be some great synergies. And this is what's so key is building those relationships. It may take 2, 3, 5, 7 years, but at some point in time, you and even myself, or when we will most likely sell a lot of our portfolio or give it to our kids or whatever the scenario is. But at some point in time, there will be some form of exit strategy that we will have in our properties. So why can't that be myself wanting to buy those types of properties? So,
and that's a great point. And I just want to add to that, especially for a beginner investor, this has to be win-win. As in, you can't try to beat up the vendor for stuff, because if you do, they're not going to bring you the next deal.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, right? Absolutely.
So I just want to make sure folks know that, because I think too many people, maybe it's how they were raised. It's just like they think that they have to win the negotiation.
Yeah,
you might win that one. You're going to lose the war, though.
You're going to lose the war. I agree with that. Yep. Yeah.
Because the next one's going to somebody else, and then that could have been a lot of money to you.
Yeah. Well, I think the big piece is credibility, and credibility is, as you know, and especially in this game, is you don't want to ruin your reputation out there, especially if you're looking to buy multiple deals. It's a small industry, very small industry, very small, and as soon as you ruin it, it's just like, oh, not that Mike Ponte guy again. Oh, that guy's a pain in the what. I don't want to deal with him, right? And then that becomes a little bit of an issue versus, oh, that Mike Ponte guy. You know what? We did a really good deal with him last time, and he was really fair. Everything seemed to work out, and everything worked out accordingly to plan. That's the type of reputation you want to have. So.
Yeah, that's how you get referrals for deals.
Amazing how that works, eh?
Amazing how that works, right? You don't think property managers or realtors are going to background check you?
Absolutely.
Like, your realtor in New Brunswick might ask, "Hey, can I speak to your other realtor, like Terry or someone in Halifax?" And then, I want to hear what it's like to work with you. Because they're busy too. They want to close deals. They don't want tire kickers. Nobody wants tire kickers.
Nobody wants tire kickers.
So Michael, you really got my interest about when you said that you're focused heavily on locations near schools. We haven't talked about student rentals for a long time in this show. Why would you prefer, someone who's like 18 years old, 19 years old over someone with a full-time job? I probably just blow some people's minds, actually.
Yeah, well, I actually look at two of those. Like, if we're in kind of downtown communities, that's more business districts or something like that, then obviously we're looking at in that. But when I was looking at some of the properties that we've acquired in universities, one of the nice things that we have found is these individuals that are younger, be it 1 bedroom or bachelors or 2 bedrooms, they may not be paying the rent for those particular properties. So those are usually the bank of mom and dad. So you get that stability that's there when it comes from the rental income side. The only issue that you tend to deal with when it comes to students is, obviously, you're probably well aware, is you just want to make sure that the property is being maintained well. And so this is where you got a good resident manager in place to making sure that they're maintaining it appropriately, they're following it through the guidelines and stuff, but you're getting that consistency of rent constantly, right? And so for us, it's, we work with the students as well. And like I said, if the bank of mom and dad are actually paying it, we really don't have too many issues with it. And that's the key, is we just don't want to have a lot of, turnover. We want to make sure that's staying consistent, because at the end of the day, it is all about it's all about the performance of the property itself that's maintaining the valuation of our property. So we're looking for things to be as stable as they possibly can to make sure we're not only just maintaining the valuation, but we're looking for opportunities to increase that valuation of that property as well. And that's really a big key focus for us, is how do we increase the value for our properties? And we're always looking and monitoring and looking for rental increases, ways to reduce our expenses. and just trying to make sure that things are stabilized. And the other part that we look at in our apartment buildings too is really trying to create a kind of a community so people are feeling pride within their property as well. And I think that's one that tends to be missed a lot. Small little things that you can do to have a little bit of fun, like even just at Christmas, doing a Christmas door decoration contest, and you win, a couple $100 or something like that. But again, just a little bit of pride, barbecues in the summertime. But though, at the end of the day, we're housing people, and these are our customers. And so we want to try to create as positive an environment as we possibly can for these individuals. And hopefully they will want to stay. But even more importantly, people, as you know, we surround ourselves with people of like mind, and hopefully they can bring some really good quality people into the building as well. And that's what we try to do by creating that type of community within the building in itself. This way we reduce our vacancies. Hopefully they're recommending people when an opportunity becomes available that a unit's vacant. But the main goal is having good quality individuals living in our places that are happy to be living there and wanting to stay. So
those are great examples and ideas for anyone to use for the creation of community. That's awesome, because if the neighbors get along better, then they're going to get along better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Organized to fight the sheriff for eviction. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. We live in Ontario. It's in the headlines all the time. You mentioned you're looking for opportunity to increase value. Can you give some examples?
Yeah. So for us, the big piece that we love to see is obviously rent's the big one. So if we're acquiring a property, like even in this scenario that we're looking at right now, this is a second generation owned building, fully paid off, this apartment building, completely paid off. So it's been literally a nice big golden goose, laying lots of big eggs for the current seller. But at the end of the day, she's going to get a nice big check, and that may be much more of appeal to them. But the problem that she's got here is she's got like the average 2-bedroom unit there is about $950. She's got a bunch of 2 bedrooms renting at $600 or $650, somewhere in that vicinity. So her valuation out of her property is not good, right? It's not great. She could have probably got a lot more because the cap rate is not showing very well. So with that being said, there's an opportunity to raise all those types of rents, number one. Now, the kind of general rule, so don't hold myself accountable to this, but the general rule, depending on the market, is for every dollar you're able to increase in regards to net operating income, you're increasing your value by about 10-fold. So your 10x type of strategy, and sometimes even more than that, 15 or 20-fold. So we're looking for those dollars to constantly be able to raise that. So that's one way, is obviously raising some of the rents. Secondly, the big one that I always look at is the utility costs. So in this building, as an example, all of these units are electric baseboard heating. There's no boiler required here. Okay. But at the same time, the owner's actually paying for this, but they're all separately metered. So just right off the bat, as soon as we can get these properties turned over, or we transition it to, if the property turns over, the first thing we're going to do is obviously raise the rent. And secondly, all the utilities are actually going to go towards the tenant. The tenant's going to be paid for that stuff, not the owner. And so we'll be starting to implement those things. So again, between raising the rent and having the utilities moved over, it's going to increase the net operating income quite significantly right off the go. And so, when we were talking at the very beginning is, what am I going to do here with this strategy? Looking at it as a BRRRR method is, we talked about this before. It's like, do we get rid of the tenants first, or what do we do? But technically, in New Brunswick, we don't have the same scenarios we're dealing in Vancouver and Toronto. Is cap or rent increase thresholds. Like it's not like a 3% cap. So in those particular markets, it's infinite. You can raise it to whatever level you want.
Oh, New Brunswick doesn't have rent control like Vancouver, like
no, Ontario? They don't. No. So that's one of the beautiful things about it, is we have the ability to raise those particular rents in those particular markets at a higher level. So it's not that we want to kick them out, but we would do it kind of systematically as well, as say, okay, we look at this particular unit, we will do it for this particular unit, maybe give them a rent increase at that point in time, maybe do some renovations of that particular unit. They may want to leave, but I think for them, for the most part, is when they start to go out and explore what the normal rent ranges are in that area, they're going to come to the realization that they've had a free ride for a very, very long time. But unfortunately, this has to actually change. So at that point in time, I'm going to make some decisions on what they want to do. So we would do a slow transition in regards to doing this one at a time. Just, we don't want the building to be completely vacant. So we want to make sure that as we are dealing with this, it's one suite at a time, still maintaining a good income stream that's coming in, but at the same time, looking for those opportunities to increase the valuation of the building at any point in time. So.
And what are some other renovations that you would do to try to maximize the rents?
Renovations per se? Yeah. Well, renovations per se, anything that we can do to make sure that the property is not just we want to improve it to a level where we can get above average rents. So, the simplest things that we can do. Flooring is an easy one. Some fresh coat of paint, some really, really simple things. We're going in with vinyl plank flooring pretty much for everything we do. Those light gray colors, moldings, kitchens as well. So if there's some kitchens that are outdated, we will replace the kitchens if need be. Again, suite by suite, we'll budget for those types of things. So we really want to improve the condition of the building in itself to make sure that we're getting those kind of above market rents appropriately. Some of the other things that we look at, depending on the market too as well, sometimes, if you have the ability in some markets to charge for parking, you have the ability to increase it by parking. Storage is another real big one for a lot of people as well. Bike storage, or say, for example, you got a facility where you got a big storage shed of some sort where people want to store their bikes, and you can charge for those types of services as well. So anything that we can look at for ways to kind of create a further income stream, so be it. Like the one property we bought in Edmonton, one of the things that came out of it was a very similar situation with utilities and rents were too low and all that stuff. But what became available was the owner was actually storing his motorhome, and he was also storing his, what was the other one? It was a motorhome, and it was a boat. That's what it was.
Yeah, I was going to guess boat.
Okay, it was a boat, and it was just taking
up for the pandemic.
Exactly right. So it was taking up this space, and it's a very big lot on this property, which is great. And so when we saw this, I'm like, this is yet another income stream that we can utilize, right? And we can rent this space to do this and just make sure that we just have a nice solid agreement. So what we've done here is we thought we'd create the space. He's got power, so it's power right there. And so it's being charged at $75 per month per space. And guess who we rented it to? Want to take a guess? The owner or the seller. So they actually kept their boat and kept their motorhome there. We own the building, and now they were actually renting this space on our behalf. And this thing's generating an extra $150 a month of income. And again, remember we talked that multiplier by 10. That's now we start to add that as part of the revenue stream going in. So these are just small little things that you can kind of look at to try to build that multiplier up and increase the value. So now here's just yet another income stream that literally came out of nowhere because we just saw it and like, hey, we could probably do something like that too. And again, you can look at many different ways for storage, be it laundry. Obviously, laundry income's another one, and making sure that everything's there. You can do vending if you need to, but any small little things that you can kind of looking at ways to increase it. That's what you're wanting to do. And obviously, the big piece: utilities, expenses, any maintenance costs. Making sure that you're reducing some of those expenses to the best of your ability. And the one for a lot of people for apartment buildings is making sure that you do your preventative maintenance, so those costs aren't significant later on by doing those small costs now versus trying to incur a large cost down the road. So
right, I'm replacing a toilet flapper in my house right now.
Toilet flapper, yep.
That's like it's one of the biggest enemies of any landlord.
Absolutely. Oh, it is a nightmare. I
should almost put that one on like the annual maintenance list. Like, I don't care if it works or not. Even if it's working, just replace it anyways.
Just replace it. Exactly.
I don't know. Michael, how are you doing for time?
I've got time. Yeah, I'm good.
You got time? Awesome. So another question. Are you seeing many vendor takebacks still?
Absolutely. It's becoming much more common these days, to be really honest with you. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Especially in multifamily. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of that out there for sure. It's becoming more practice. As you're probably well aware, financing in the commercial world is interesting, to say it lightly, especially if you're trying to get CMHC financing. The pandemic has definitely not helped the cost.
Get me started on Evan Siddle.
Yeah. It's really, really tough. So for a lot of people that are kind of getting into this game, in some cases, vendor financing is becoming a much more common thread because there may be, if we use this example here of an apartment building, we're fortunate to have the cash, but if we work with a vendor to do some financing short term and then get the financing at a later date, be it a year and a half from now, here the vendor can generate a little bit of a profit, not necessarily need to hold it, but what it does do is it gives the buyer like myself time and to do the financing that we want. And CMHC financing is extremely cheap like right now, and the one best part about it is the banks, be commercial financing, they love the segment of multifamily right now because there's a lot of concern in the market of what's happening under the commercial office space, and how the pandemic's played out in regards to people now working from home. So there's this big massive question mark of how that commercial space is going to play in financing that. So, but the bank still obviously wants to make money. And so they're starting to kind of say, hey, multifamily has been pretty solid. And multifamily, and one of the real appeals to this is multifamily is kind of lowest common denominator. So let's say price values and people starting to lose their jobs, God forbid, it's horrible, but people still need a place to live. And so when it comes to apartment buildings, that is your cheapest option that's available. And it's not like it's a horrible option. There's lots of great apartment buildings, but from an affordability perspective, it'll be much cheaper than your conventional townhomes or a house or something of that nature. So, God forbid somebody, isn't able to afford their home or their mortgage any longer. And I hope that doesn't happen. But the reality is if they need a place to rent, they kind of maybe move to a townhouse or a townhouse to a condo or an apartment building. And so there's always this demand that's always there. So in that situation, from the bank's perspective, they see that as being solid. There's a lot of banks really open to the idea. It's just taking a bloody long time to get this done. So for us investors that are wanting to get financing, it's a little bit of a challenge. So vendor financing is becoming a much more common discussion piece because it may be short term, just so you can get your CMHC financing that you want. And our financing rate that we just got was like 1.7% amortized over 35 years. And I actually could have got 40 years on that amortization. So it's cheap money right now. It's just absolutely cheap money that people can take advantage of. So you're just taking advantage of some short-term financing. So you can work with the timelines for CMHC financing, which is it's taking about almost 4 months right now, 3.5 to 4 months to get that actually approved. So you could be in this contract for 4 or 5 months. So, and a lot of sellers are not going to be patient enough to wait for that particular period of time. Right. So us as buyers, we need to be a little bit more creative in how we go and acquire these properties. Right. So, yeah.
But it sounds like, I believe the problem started even around the pandemic time where CMHC would not give you the same loan to value, or their appraisals would not come anywhere close to.
You're market. Absolutely right. You're right. Absolutely right. Yep.
Just being ultra conservative. Right. So the word has probably gotten to sellers that you're going to be more flexible on the financing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's even coming from from the individuals that are the agents that are actually selling on the seller's behalf. Is they're having those discussions and saying, hey, just FYI, I would hope they're having this discussion. It's just like, FYI, financing is a nightmare right now. Yeah. And vendor financing may be something that's going to have to happen. And so, it's up to the owner if they're going to be willing to accept that or not. But as you start to see these deals starting to kind of come in, and they're seeing a consistent pattern of vendor take back, vendor take back, vendor take back. And it's, I think from the perspective of the selling agent, it's really about education more than anything to understand, hey, this is, if you want to sell your building, this just may be part of the process. So hopefully you can accept that and start to determine what your terms are going to be in your mind when it comes to vendor financing. So,
yep. Fascinating stuff. And I had a point around that, but I forget what it was. I was going to say, that's actually this is a great topic or test question when people are interviewing agents. Because, for example, most residential agents have no idea what a vendor take back mortgage is.
Totally.
So if you're interviewing people for apartment buildings, ask them if they know what it is, and they should be able to rhyme it right off.
you would hope, and I guess it goes right back to the simplicity is your team, and you've learned this too, Erwin. It's just like your team is instrumental. Like they need to understand the business that you're in, and if they don't, then you've got the wrong person, right? You've got to find somebody that understands what you're doing. And so if they're still selling you granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and you're an investor, that's all pretty and fancy and nice and all. But the reality is you're an investor, right? So it's, you're not necessarily sweating that too much. So
I'm sure you can appreciate, imagine you trying to teach an agent what vendor take back mortgages, and then they have to go educate the seller.
It's actually funny you said that, because I've had to. I've actually had to. And so, and then the other part is I actually showed them how to present it, and I wrote it down like a letter format of how it needs to be presented. And then I actually made the realtor present it to me for practice to make sure it was done right. And it was not a shot at them. I just needed to make sure that the message was relayed appropriately. And I always kind of make that joke. It's kind of like, imagine telling a secret in somebody's ear and then it gets passed on to the other one, and so on and so on and so on. By the time it gets to the very end, that message has been completely screwed up. And so try to be as clear as you possibly can. And you just want to make sure that communication is done as best as you possibly can working with your agent. And that's why having an experienced, knowledgeable agent is so key. So
for anyone who's analytical, it makes complete sense to the seller.
Yep, it does.
Defer some of those gains. Like, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? Absolutely.
Oh no! Worst case, I get my building back and I get to keep all his equity. Oh no!
Oh, no! I hate when that happens.
But again, if the intermediary can't communicate it, then you're lost. You're done.
Exactly. Exactly.
Michael, I just have maybe two more questions, and I'll let
you go. Go for it, buddy.
You mentioned partners, so I'll give a short story. I had a young gentleman, approach me to invest in a project he wanted to do. I think he wanted to duplex a property, and I was thinking, you approached completely the wrong person. Right? I make really good money on my money, right? But I'm a bit of a control freak. So 2 big warning signs for who not to have as your partner.
Don't talk to Erwin.
No, I'm way too controlling. I want way too much detail. That's personally why I don't private lend, because I want way too much detail. If it was a BRRRR, for example, or a flip, I'd probably want to be on site every week. That's just my personality. I just know who I am. Now, describe in general terms, who is your partner? Because I think this is a major miss, right? That a lot of people have. They shotgun approach without any thought about who their partner is actually going to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so the way we approach it is hopefully consistent with other people's, but I know is not, because the reality is, for real estate investors going into money partner raise and raising capital and finding partners, their main focus is, I just need the money. Give me the money. I need to do the deal. I don't care who you are, which is absolutely wrong. It's the wrong way to approach this. And so for me, I never, ever present a deal to newbies. Like, for me, I treat my partners as if it's somebody I'm going to marry for the next 5 years. So for example, with you and Sherry, you would never have just said, hey, hopefully that's not the case, but the reality is you didn't meet her and say, let's get married tomorrow. And so you got to treat that in the same type of perspective. You've got to understand who the person is. Is the mindset exactly the same? Are your guys' goals exactly the same? Is your strategy the right strategy for them? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be working with this person for like 4 or 5 years. And when I talk to partners, I always say, I don't want your relationship for 3 or 5 years. I want your relationship for 20 years, and understand that I want to be able to do the best I possibly can to commit to the goals that we've laid out here, and that you're so happy that we continue to flip this over and over and over again with other projects. And so for me, as they're interviewing me and trying to understand, the biggest piece is trust, right? They want to make sure that they're trusting in me, that they can trust me, because they're going to give me $75,000, $100,000, whatever the magic number is going to be, and that they can trust me wholeheartedly with their capital, and whatever I'm referencing to them is going to commit to what their goals and objectives are for what their investment goals, and vice versa the other way around. So for me, this is a person I want to be able to say, can I work with this person? Is that person's personality in alignment with myself? Can I trust this person as well? Because again, it's like a marriage. You want to make sure that there's a lot of compatibility that's there. And also there's specific thresholds in regards to capital. If somebody's got like, $15,000 and that's all the money that they have in the world, and their expectations is, Mike, you know what, I got 15 grand, here you go, my expectation from you is I want you to turn this to $1 million in 2 years, and so here's my check, here, just take it, but can you do, and the answer is like, that's not going to happen, because I can't commit to that, I can't promise, there's no way I can't do that. And I go, listen, you know what, I wish I could do that. That's not in my wheelhouse whatsoever. It may, your money probably would be better somewhere else where you can actually do a better return. And when you find that return, let me know, because I might be interested in investing in that as well.
You know my
But
answer to that.
yeah, exactly. but truthfully, it's like, you got to make sure that, whatever you are saying, you're able to achieve whatever that person's objective is. Because if you're saying that you're able to do it, that's their expectation. So, for me, it's about under promising and over deliver. Our valuation, like anything that we do in regards to returns, and you see this all the time, I'm making 50% return on my investment every single year, yada, yada, yada. And I'm guaranteeing it. And there's lots of ways people spin. It's just, yeah, you see all that stuff, right? And so for us, I was talking to Erwin about this in advance, is the one thing that I do know is I know what the mortgage pay down is. We have to pay the mortgage every month, right? So we know what the equity is. The second piece that I have clarity to is what the cash flow is today. And so those are the numbers that I use for my analysis, and those are the ones that I control. The one thing I don't necessarily know is possible market appreciation. And so, when we see market appreciation in Vancouver, like 14, 15% per year, and so on and so on, it's hard to kind of say that that's going to be continued. I always treat, there's the three profit centers: cash flow, mortgage pay down, and appreciation. I always look at it as like an analogy of an ice cream sundae. And so the ice cream is actually the mortgage pay down. That's the substance. That's the basis of the investment. When it comes to the cash flow side, that's the chocolate sauce and sprinkles. That you can bank on that. Based on current reality today. That's what that's what you have clarity to. Well, the one thing no investor knows is actually the appreciation of the property in itself. And I always reference that as the cherry on top. And so hopefully that cherry on top is going to be multiple cherries on top. But I try to base my information on stuff that I have a lot of control with. The budget, which is what it is, it's a budget on appreciation, is always very, very conservative, because I'd rather under promise and over deliver than the opposite way and disappoint any of the individuals that I'm involved with. Mm-hmm. And so for those that are looking to get into partnerships, making sure that you've got the right person to begin with, but be true to that person, just like you would be in a marriage, is like, if they're expecting something that you can't deliver, you might as well be upfront and honest and say, I can't do that. And I do that all the time. I'll have those discussions and I say, listen, you want to make a 30% return on your investment year over year. That's fantastic. It's awesome. But honestly, it's not that I can't do that, but there's no way I can say that that's what's going to happen. I can't promise something like that. So I always stay really conservative. And I say, the reason why I'm staying conservative is I would rather under promise and over deliver than try to meet that expectation that this is what's going to happen and promise that to you and just be disappointing you later on. I want to make sure that I have a long-term, good, steady relationship with that individual for, again, not 3 to 5 years, hopefully 20 years, right? So. Mm-hmm.
So in general terms, who is your partner? Are these like ultra rich people, or are they like middle class folks with pension money they want to redeploy or something like that?
Yep. I've got kind of a combination of both, actually. So I've got a lot of pensioners, people that are looking for good, steady, distributions of their income side. A lot of doctors, a lot of dentists, so high net worth individuals. I do have, I wouldn't say they're middle class, but more higher middle class individuals, good family income. Those are kind of my ideal individuals. And again, I'm not looking for somebody personally. I'm not looking for somebody that, if it's only $20,000 or $15,000, that's all the money that they have. It's probably not the right fit for me. Like I said, because in that situation they're one incident away from needing to call in that cash. And we look at what's happened in the pandemic is, all of a sudden something happens and they're like, Mike, that $15,000 that I gave you, I need that money back. Well, as you know, real estate is not liquid. It's not, it takes time. There's expenses that go along with this. And if you're into this deal for a year, there's a very good chance that you're probably going to lose some money in that scenario here, because real estate is one of these things, it's long-term wealth. And that's the reality of what the game is. And there's other strategies, be it fix and flips. And I know a lot of other guests that are doing this. When it comes to our strategy, we're more of a buy and hold strategy. And that's our approach to this. It's not to say that we don't kind of do more of a BRRRR method in multifamily, but it is a longer approach. So for us, our individuals, for the most part, they are higher net worth individuals. They are a lot of our doctors and dentists and those types of individuals. And then we've got a lot of business owners, and I've also got pensioners as well that have got a lot of capital that are looking to disperse that somewhere else. But for them, what they're looking for is, for them, they're looking at that steady income that we pay out for the particular projects. And then we try to find those right projects for those right individuals. And so, if we're looking at like Halifax as an example that had really great cash flow, but maybe not a lot of equity, then those are really great for those types of individuals that are pensioners that really don't really care so much about the equity. They just want to see that money coming in to sustain the kind of the lifestyle that they want. So,
right. Cash flow secured on a multifamily apartment. That's not the worst thing in the world.
Not at all.
I think of all the investments out there, I'm sure there's not that many that beat it.
Yep,
Michael,
correct.
Thanks so much for doing this. Where can folks follow your journey? Like, are you on
Sure.
TikTok, Snapchat? You're not banned, right?
I'm not banned. No, not at all. No. I welcome everybody. We've got a group called Savvy Investor. If you're on Facebook at all, YouTube page is actually going to go out live next week. We've got a lot of great guest speakers coming out. If you guys go to our Savvy Investor Facebook page, it is a forum for people just talking about real estate. There's no selling involved. It's just about learning. So if you are wanting to learn more about real estate investing from a residential perspective, vendor takebacks, we bring a lot of great speakers out. Hopefully I can get Erwin out here very soon. And we've had his lovely wife, Sherry, out there just recently. But it's really about a network of sharing, connecting with other people. And again, we just talked about, meeting your investment team. And that's what the forum's really designed, is being is a channel where everybody kind of connects. So I invite everybody to come and join. Absolutely free. Doesn't cost anything. And we'd love to have you join us. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And then I'll let you, I asked a lot of questions. So I asked you, like, would you like to give any final words without any direction from myself?
Well, like I said, I think I've answered a lot, but the reality is, for those of you just getting started or maybe just wanting to learn a little bit more, just take the time to network and connect with the right people for yourself. And Erwin and I were kind of saying, there's a lot of stuff that's out there as well. And just making sure that the individuals that you're listening to and talking to are people that have actually had a lot of that type of experience. Don't be afraid. We've all been through this before, and it can be a little bit of a scary place and sometimes feel a little bit lonely, but just understand there are a lot of amazing people out there that are more than willing to share information to help support you in your investment journey. And you just need to kind of, regardless of whatever investment strategy you're working on or wanting to do, just keep pushing that forward, keep wanting to learn, but start to take action for yourself, because the last thing you want to do is sit on the sidelines and have any regrets at a later point in time. So.
I'll just add to that for folks, because I find folks gravitate to whoever just posts the most on social media.
So true. So true.
Versus you and I have been around for a while. So like we'll reach out to like the Terry Pranch, we'll reach out to a Michael Ponte, to a Pierre Paul Turgeon, to a Tahani. Yep. Like, just because they don't post on Instagram or TikTok doesn't mean they don't know their stuff.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully I have Brian Pullis on the show. He won't have a TikTok either, I'm pretty sure. But, there's all these old school people who do perfectly fine, because real estate isn't that, it's not like a Tesla. It's not like we've gone to a completely different realm. A lot of the old school stuff still works.
Old Buicks. We're old Buicks.
Michael, thank you again for doing this. Congratulations on all your success. Happy health, and happy family in 2021.
Thanks for having me, guys, and really enjoy it. So thank you for having me, Erwin. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks again.